Welcome to Hyperlocal, a new video series exploring the people and projects shaping Park Royal, London. In this first episode, we sit down with Jonny Brewin, a key figure in building the area's creative community. Jonny connects artists, makers, and creators with local industry, helping important parts of Park Royal come to life. With phenomenal support from Ealing Council and the OPDC, North Acton and Park Royal are seeing thoughtful, forward-thinking development projects that feel like they've always belonged. Jonny shares the story behind North Acton Square. This podcast was brought to you by Doppel Studios.
Yes, I'm Jonny Brewin of the Republic of Park Royal and by extension the Republic Community Project. So primarily we run affordable studios through the Republic of Park Royal.
Right.
And then we have a fledgling charity that we're in the process of forming, which is effectively exists at the moment as a not-for-profit called the Republic Community Project. And then as a group of studio providers and other stakeholders in Park Royal, we came together, I think, is it 4 or 5 years ago, as Park Royal Design District. So that was primarily driven by Bill Amberg and Henry Krakatsis. So Henry Krakatsis runs the Queen's Roller House Studios, and Bill Amberg has his Leatherwork Studios up on Minerva Road, and is obviously kind of a big deal in the design world, and has connections all over the place. So he was the natural person to bring everybody together. And then we formed a loose association. We meet every month, every second month, and we come together for London Craft Week and most recently for London Design Festival. And sponsored primarily by Imperial College and the OPDC. And I think probably the OPDC are the initial driver in all of this. And really it's all in large part due to Eleanor Fawcett, who basically helped us all come together as a group and provided that initial funding. And now we're also we've been supported by City and Docklands. We're now supported by, we were supported by Barrett, but other developers in the neighbourhood have come together to help support that. So the aim of PRDD is sort of slightly different from the aim to my objectives. So the aim of PRDD is to bring craftspeople, artists and makers in Park Royal, support them in their work and introduce them to the people effectively living and working in the neighbourhood. And to showcase their work and support them in their journey. A lot of them are. The thing about Park Royal is most of the artists and makers here don't necessarily have formal arts training or an arts background.
Right.
And a lot of them don't even necessarily call themselves designers, artists, or anything really. They're too embarrassed to say that, and don't have that kind of formal. Because everybody in East London, they've all come through the everything from St Martin's to the RCA and these sorts of institutions. Whereas here, people describe a lot of, especially younger ones, describe themselves as being sort of broadly creative, and that could be anything from printing T-shirts to, we were talking about small content on a phone for loading up onto Instagram or onto YouTube. But then you find out actually they are making film and they're photographing, and then they find out that they're painting as well. And so I think that they find it hard to actually say I'm an artist. So geographically, I think we're the whole area that's defined by the OPDC, so the Old Oakham Park Royal Development Corporation. So everything up to the North Circular, the A40 on one side, Wormwood Scrubs on this side, and Harlesden on the other side. I think I kind of covered everything. So it's a huge area, actually. It's a massive area, but realistically, it's focused on this little grid of streets here, which is closest to North Acton Tube Station.
Right.
It's the older buildings. It's the tighter streets.
Right.
It's the kind of the slightly more hectic part of Park Royal.
Right.
Forklift trucks and deliveries, and which makes it exciting. and also because it's split to lots of small ownership here, so it makes it a much more interesting and diverse neighbourhood. The further out in Park Royal you go, the bigger the warehouses become, and it's bigger business. The further out you go, big lorry deliveries. Whereas here we're vans and on foot. It's a different thing. Sunbeam, Gorse, Standard, and Minerva. That's the kind of that's kind of broadly. That's the core of the district. Yeah.
And within that area, there are how many different buildings which you have knowledge?
So we've got I think we've got five spaces. Then there's also 42 Gorse Road, which is a really great building with I don't know, probably about 50 studios in there. Then there's artistic spaces on Standard Road. They've got about 80 studios there. There's Queen's Roller House, which is probably the coolest in the neighbourhood. That's the kind of the best building. It's at the end of Trading Estate Road. It's got a great roof terrace. It's really nice. Have you been there? You've not been there? Yeah. Oh, it's nice. Really, really nice. So yeah, that's Henry Krakatzis' studio. So he's part of the Park Royal Design, one of the founders of the Park Royal Design District. Then of course, Bill Amberg's studio. And there are various other smaller spaces. There's Garden Studios, there's the film studios over on Waxlow Road. The history actually is that the London Design Festival exists in its own right. So it's a London-wide design festival led by Ben Evans. And he approached Bill Amberg and said, how about doing something in Park Royal? And Bill then and Henry gathered us all together to form the Park Royal Design District in order to take part in London Design Festival. And for me, it's really important that we have that kind of London-wide credibility. And it's also a great hook for people, and it's something to focus people's attention on. So you have this event, and it's a reason for lots of things to get done. You need a date, and you need a deadline. Right. So everybody kind of gets behind that. Right. And it's the 4th or 5th inaugural year. Do you know? I don't know. We've done how many? We've done 4, I think, or 5. Strategic industrial location, so a SIL. And it has a kind of a national significance. It has, first of all, it's a London-wide significance. Right. To the same extent that Heathrow is significant to London. Right. Park Royal as a strategic industrial location is significant to London, but it also has a national significance. It's at the end of the M1 and the M40 and the North Circular and Heathrow. When was this significance kind of, or the label attributed? To be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's been, I'd say at least 15 years, I think. For me, Park Royal is about collaboration. We were talking the other day about regeneration and the fine line between regeneration and gentrification. Sure. And regeneration always tends to be associated with residential neighbourhoods. But we're an industrial neighbourhood. So I don't know that you can necessarily apply the same tag, because this is a place of commerce, of business and production. Right. So in a way, as artists and makers, you kind of find refuge in an industrial neighbourhood, because you're not competing with residential values. People have to collaborate in order to achieve what that commercial business needs to do. Right. And a place like Park Royal will draw together all sorts of people that ordinarily wouldn't meet. Okay. So you build a nice swanky new apartment block, and people don't necessarily actually talk to each other. But in this place, people do talk to each other. Right. We all work together. Right. So say, for example, come together for London Design Festival, and everybody's pulling together. Well, if you take the diversity of people in Park Royal, or the different artists and makers, they ordinarily just don't meet. They don't go out for dinner, necessarily go out for dinner with each other, or go for drinks, or go to the cinema or whatever, or go for a walk in the park. But in a workplace, and the thing that I find really liberating about that is that you'll work with somebody from a completely different background to your own, and okay, we've got a project to do, we've got to deliver X by the end of the week. And in doing so, you're working with somebody that you wouldn't normally meet. And you get to the end of the week and you think, actually, you're not so bad. And I find this really kind of interesting that it's democratizing in a way.
Right.
And I also keep coming back to the idea of, I keep on talking about Italy as being this mythical place, but I like the idea of old Italian villages where people within there was such a not, I wouldn't say a hierarchy, but different groups of different people within the same village, yet they will all eat the same food.
Right.
They'll all understand the same culture and the same art. It's not exclusive, and it's just a question of money. Doesn't matter where you're from. Why can't you appreciate it in the same way as somebody that's been through the university system and had some kind of it's. So that's what that's for me the interesting thing is connecting with the guys who are operating the forklift truck around the corner,
right?
The women working the sewing machines, round the back, well, just down the road from us here. Why does somebody make a piece of artwork here and then think that it's got to be flown to Miami for it to be appreciated by some art collectors over there? Why don't you just show it to the people that are literally around you? Why can't they appreciate it as much? Okay, they can't pay the money that you want for it, but their opinion and their insight and you make stuff, we do stuff for people, for other people, and we're always thinking that the people around us are not good enough. We've got to take it always somewhere else. So the idea of the collaboration and the being hyper-local and being here is actually there are a lot of people here. Why don't we just start with these people first? And that's bringing me back to the idea of the village. That, it's a small little village. Let's get this little village right first.
Right.
And then if people like that, the next village might start, we can tack on with them and we can perhaps, do things with them as well. But well, my first people of the month are Eva and Greg, who, the pallet wood people. I mean,
Right. They are rustic,
they just arrived from heaven.
rustic designs, right?
Yes. Yeah, they're great.
Right.
They've lived, because they're both horticulturalists, so they've been working on basic gardening projects in thing. I think running kind of quite a successful business. And then Eva set up the recycling from making furniture from recycled pallet wood.
Right.
And then they arrived at X2 looking for space, and of course we gave them a studio made entirely out of pallet wood. So I mean, you couldn't have made it up. And then at that particular moment, we needed the benches and the planters for the square at North Acton,
Right.
and they had 2 weeks in which to make them, and they've done that. So it's just that's been.
He was so happy to actually see us to move to this workshop, because he loves actually as well the pallet wood, and we just love make anything from pallet wood. So he was so happy to actually for us to be here. So he's really amazing person. Yes, he's doing really lovely things for the community.
Greg gave me the wood for that sign.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Oh, I can see it now. Yeah, I can see it now.
Greg,
Oh, that's great.
Greg
Yeah, I mean,
gave me
okay,
that sign.
you've encapsulated all. It's
Right.
yeah, it's like.
This
But
is
I
insane.
remember when we first got this building, and I bumped in because Riccardo Pauli, the framer,
Yes.
is down there. So he came with the building. He was our first. We sort of bought the building with him in it, and which is amazing because he does all the framing for Sotheby's, Christie's. He's the best framer in London, or certainly in West London. Anyway, David gets his frames done from him, and I met him outside with his 2 beagle dogs, and we just got chatting. And we were in the midst of the building work here. And I
Right.
came back a couple of weeks later, And he painted those, the two murals that are there at the moment, the flaming circles that are in the lobby there. So he'd just done it. We hadn't talked about it. He didn't ask me about it. He just did it. And he said, listen, if you don't like it, you can just paint it all over. And I said, it's just like it's an absolute kind of focal point of the building.
Right.
And he said, he doesn't mind. We could have it up for a week or a couple of days and then just paint it. He'll paint it over again. Anyway, it's been here ever since, 8 years or so. And then I felt bad and I said, listen, why don't we, I need to pay you for this because we're actually keeping it and we like it. And he was insistent that we didn't take any payment. He just liked doing it. So it was a petrol station not that long ago. It was an Esso petrol station. And I think the OPDC bought it from the petrol station and then converted it into the square with giving access down to the tube station. And they did a really nice job. It was landscaped. But, with all these things, there's never enough money to employ a gardener to come every week. Litter picking, there's only so much one man can do every morning to pick up the rubbish. And so gradually over the last sort of 4 years, what was a really great project is sort of like, there's a bit too much rubbish, and with the rubbish comes a sort of a rat infestation, and the brambles take over and the buddleia is taken over. And so generally what was a really great project sort of turns into like a kind of like a place where people are anxious about. So we had the idea of, initially the idea was broader to have a village, but the idea not of a notional village, an installation of a village in amongst all the skyscrapers that are going up there now. So smaller scale buildings that we would give residencies to artists and dot them around on the bits of land that we could find. And those, like a Hansel and Gretel trail, would lead inevitably to here in Park Royal. And we would connect North Acton and Park Royal through these little huts and containers that we were going to place everywhere. And it just so happened at that time, Ealing Council and the OPDC were thinking that they needed to do something to activate the square. I think originally in the plans, there'd been a little row of shops had been planned in there, but because things cost, it didn't actually happen. So this kind of plan coincided perfectly with that moment. So I worked with Ketan and the OPDC and Ealing Council to pull this project together to activate the square. So the 6 containers. Primarily the idea that originally they were just going to be artist studios, but they said they needed something a bit more kind of active and that people could kind of engage with. And I can kind of see that actually.
Sure.
So I suppose the art is in the shop. So our shop, Super Mega Hyper Duper Metro Market Express, selling everything made and produced in North Acton and Park Royal. Jiwoon, the Awake from Awakener, who's been on the square in his little van for the last 4 or 5 years, will go into a container. There's a young lad called Hamza who lives in the buildings opposite. It'll be his first business. He's a barber. He'll set up there. Then there'll be our shop. Then we'll have a PRDD office, which is going to serve as a kind of meeting point, information point, give people kind of information about the neighborhood. Then we've got a micro pub, which is going to, I think it's called the Old Oak Tap, and we'll be serving beer brewed at the foundry. And so that's to a guy from White City, another guy from Harlesden, and they're kind of home brewers. And then the final one is, did you meet Kai? Soundburger. So he's a music producer, but he works as a chef on the side to support his work in music. Right. So now he's bringing the two together to produce Soundburger. So he's going to be mixing the decks and flipping burgers, and we did a tasting here. They're really, really great. So he's young and local. So these are kind of opportunities for people to do small little startups, and the rent will effectively be zero until they make a profit. If they make a profit, then they have to share that back with with us as the community project.
Right.
And then the next bit along is the square, the gardener's shed. So we've got our guerrilla gardening group and litter picking group here in Park Royal. So we're going to have a division in, I never know if it's a corps or division. I'm using military terms, guerrilla gardening, divisions and corps. So we'll have a group there in North Acton. Hopefully we'll draw in from the students and from the residents.
Right.
And everybody in the square has to give 1.5 hours of, anybody in a container has to give 1.5 hours of community service every week to collect rubbish and to tend the garden as well, and to draw it out so that people take ownership. And then finally we've got the Recollectives village hut, so made from recycled materials from the film industry, which is huge here.
Right.
And then rendered internally with the clay from the tunnels excavated from the HS2 tunnels, which are pretty much beneath our feet there. And that'll serve as our community village hut, so people can rent that as a meeting place. Could be for small events. Anything from, I don't know, reading groups to a business meeting even. We wouldn't, and then we'll charge people accordingly, whether it's a community project or a commercial entity. But hopefully this will all bring something together on the square. The Republic Community Projects has taken a 2-year lease from the OPDC. So this was originally the idea of Eleanor Fawcett at the OPDC. So the OPDC are bringing together various kind of strategic buildings in the neighbourhood, some of which will sit empty because there just isn't any economic sense in, putting a tenant in them for 6 months or a year or 2 years.
Right.
Until they get developed. So the building at Minerva Road was bought specifically to house an energy centre, local heat network. So it'll take heat from the data centres, pump it to that building, then they will raise its temperature using heat pumps, and pump it to new residential buildings as they appear in the neighbourhood. So from an environmental perspective, it's a really good thing. And so we as a community are happy that that's happening. But the really fantastic thing is that Eleanor has made it a point, and her team, also working with Kale, have made it a point that that the developer, which is Hemico and Park Royal, it's not without a buzz. You've got to have bipping horns, and that's Park Royal.
Right.
Hemico is the developer, and they've also introduced us to the architect. And although because the site is so constrained, we won't necessarily get space back, they are giving us potentially vitrine. So a big glass vitrine on the corner of the building that will be designed into it with a bench and a tree. For example, in an ideal world at the Circular Economy Hub, where we have Recollective, Rescued Clay and Absolute Beginners, if it were a bigger site or a residential site, we could work with the architects and the developers and say, right, you design your flats for families coming into the neighbourhood, but also design a space on the ground floor for us who will be part of the community or will welcome those new people moving in. We're already here. Keep us on site, and you've got a kind of something interesting happening on the ground floor. What happens so often is that somebody will get given a building, they'll use it for 6 months or a year, and then they just close down and they move somewhere else, or nothing happens. Right. Whereas what we're trying to do with Eleanor Fawcett at OPDC is to make sure that the work that we put in, and also not forgetting the work that they put in and the support that they've given, doesn't just disappear and become wasted. You actually build on that again. So I think there's a massive potential in Park Royal for us to use these buildings that are currently disused, activate them, be part of the new buildings as they evolve, and be involved in the design process, and then welcome new people when they come into the neighborhood, rather than it being the other way around all the time. So that we're here, we stay and we build a community, or continue to build in a community that already exists. It doesn't actually, to be honest with you, it doesn't need building, it's here. You don't get born. You're born in Park Royal at the hospital.
Yeah.
You can go to college, you can go to university, you can go to Imperial. You can set up your business here. Yeah. You can live here, and then you die and you go into the cemetery.
Sounds like
so it's like that's the circular economy. That's the circular
an industrial 15-minute city.
Yeah. So that's so Recollective are one of them. Then Tomato Architecture and Christian Schenkbau. I always get his name wrong. It's Senkpil, isn't it? I always pronounce it incorrectly. That's Norwegian for you. So Christian's got a studio here. Kaz has a studio here on and off. And Recollective are obviously based at Minerva Road. And very often you'll give a project to one individual designer. They take it off and they take all the kind of glory for something. But very specifically wanted to get 3 people or 3 groups working together. And to try and so you start, the design is collaborative, and then the people that move in are collaborative.
Right.
And it's worked amazingly well.
So this is really an attempt to create a prototype for a low cost construction system that is an alternative to high carbon materials that you can kind of see around here. So the idea is to this was a sort of a prototype, and a lot of research and development has gone into this construction method, and we think we've kind of got it quite right. And so, yeah, we're interested in pushing this further, using local resources, getting more young people involved in natural building materials, and trying to sort of basically establish a culture of doing construction differently, where we're getting lots of young people engaged in using really great materials.
Christian largely led the planning. Kaz and his colleague Ibra at Tomato did the visuals, which were absolutely crucial. So, having a CGI to actually present to potential investors and sponsors and weirdly, the buildings look like the CGIs, which is quite rare. Right. So yeah, we've worked really, really well together. And it has to be said that Christian and Kaz have up until now been working completely pro bono. So they've not charged a single penny, which is kind of like, wow.
Collaboration in its
wow. They've gone above and beyond. But I'm hoping that that we will have generated enough interest that actually we will get enough sponsorship in there that we'll be able to pay them a fee retrospectively in acknowledgement of the hours and hours that they put into it.
I think we quite quickly gelled, to be perfectly honest, and then we sort of looked at, okay, well, what are the client's desires? What are the outcomes he's actually trying to get to? How can we actually deliver that? My name is Christian Senkpil. I'm a director at Christian Senkpil Architecture. Design lead together with Kaz here on our scheme for North Acton Village in North Acton Square.
My name is Kaz from Tomato Architecture. And my role for this North Acton Village project is for the design elements of 6 containers with Christian. We did pretty much everything we could have done to achieve sort of sustainable kind of sustainability, recycling all the materials locally. We're creating the fences and benches, which is using the local material, which is a recycling pallet. And also 6 containers as well, which is recycled containers, which still has got long span of life.
Jonathan Brewin is really the guy who brings everyone together in Park Royal and everything. Yeah, I think he's very, very passionate about things being made here, that things being designed here, and promoting everything that happens here.
But yeah, I'm hugely grateful to them. Well, I think, partly I mean, I do actually quite find it quite therapeutic because I walk past a bin and I see it overflowing. I just like it really, and I need to go. It's with me, so I have to go back and empty it. So I've just found that if I just empty them regularly, then they don't pile up. It's just easier.
Sure.
But I'm hoping that in time, because people, I chat to you, and then you might volunteer or somebody else will volunteer, and we have these people that and it just grows from that, doesn't it?
Right.
And if I'm happy to do it, other people should be able to do it. And it's just like it's and the thing is that there are a lot of us, and if we're all doing it, it just won't be a big issue.
Right.
And I've actually found it doesn't take a lot actually to make a. It doesn't take a lot of time actually
To change.
to do it. Not really, but it's just making that mental effort to stop for 2 or 3 minutes and remember to bring the bin liner with you. So the walking tours are a really good way of giving people an overview of the next. It's a bit bewildering when you arrive here, of giving people a good overview of the neighbourhood. And most people have got no idea about HS2 or about what's happening here and about the broader things that are going on in Park Royal, let alone what the artists and the makers here. So it really is kind of holding their hand and letting them explore a neighbourhood that's otherwise hidden, and let's face it, could look a bit intimidating if you came here on a cold, rainy day. It's difficult to get inside some of these buildings. So LDF is the great excuse to do that. Surprising the people that pitch up for these walks, and they come all over the place. They come from
10 and 15 people I saw.
Well, initially we had much more than that, but they drop off as you go through because you get to bits that they've already seen. So they said, "Oh, I've seen this bit," so they leave.
Yeah.
But I would like to try and do that more regularly. Perhaps just do a once a month walking tour that starts at North Acton and then takes in the whole neighbourhood and introduce people to. We talk about things like this, like a film and Instagram and websites, and but honestly, nothing beats taking somebody to another person and introducing them to them, and them actually having, even if it's 30 seconds of a kind of connection. That's so much more compelling, isn't it, than flicking through something on Instagram. So these tours actually. And the tours, lurking in those tours, the most unusual, unlikely people that come back. So the interesting one was that a couple of years back, we did a tour, and I was introduced recently to the incoming CEO of the OPDC, and he said, "I came on one of your tours too a couple of years ago," and I had no idea, So I don't know, perhaps that had some kind of impact on him deciding to join the. I don't know. I'm kind of, but I suppose more broadly, the point I was wanting to make is that these tours, surprising people come along to them, and really interesting connections are made. Not necessarily at that particular moment, but later on, people follow up with emails and things. So it's a good way of getting a bunch of people to like one artist or maker and focusing and giving them a chance to talk about what they do.
So offhead, without an LDF map in your hand, what did the tour comprise of? Do you remember all the locations and all the roads that you walked upon?
Yeah, so
brief overview.
So we started at the North Acton Square that we're calling North Acton Village. We went to Excelsior Studios, met Lorraine, of course, with her cakes downstairs, ground up. We then went we looked around the building here, and obviously the key draw is Russell Malafant, the contemporary dance company that has its home here, and just below us, Yinko Ilori, and then round the corner to 42 Gorst Road, where the ground floor is a hugely successful online business called Flowerbox, with artist studios upstairs, and they put on a great exhibition. They've got a great little garden. Have you seen the garden at the back? That they have a really lovely garden. Then we went to X2, took in Greg and Eva. I forget what that company's called, the new company. Rustic Designs. Blast Studio, London Hackspace, Koala. We haven't talked about Koala. Probably one of the best startups in West London, in London. No. POW, Park Royal Open Workshop. Then we went on to The Market. We didn't go into Standard Studios. We were running out of time by then. And then on to Minerva Works. No, Bill Amberg, Minerva Works, Rescue Clay, Absolute Beginners, and Recollective. And I think the people came back and they said that the highlights for them were Sunday Light. Do you know Sunday Light, who are downstairs? They're a Imperial RCA startup, and they've got this amazing light that replicates sunlight, but it's like an art installation in its own right. It was them, Bill Amberg Studios, of course. It's kind of, once you go in there, it's an amazing place. Have you been inside? It's amazing. And then obviously, Ned, yeah. And then obviously it's Recollective, Rescue Clay, and Absolute Beginners. But the best one for me is Absolute Beginners. That's the best one, no?
You enjoy those the most?
They're just like amazing. That's the best project. So actually, that's so for the North Acton Village. The initial sponsorship came from the OPDC and from Imperial, and with obviously when you get support from those two, then it gives you credibility when you go to other people. But probably one of the first person to jump in was Gary Sachs at City and Docklands, who kind of didn't hesitate and gave us funding. We then also got funding from Ad Properties, who hold the Holiday Inn site, which will be soon to be developed. We also got funding from Downing, and they own student accommodation in North Acton, and also a key site next to the station. And there's somebody else I'm forgetting, and it's just slipping my mind. But there is somebody else. It's just like, it's terrible. Anyway, we've I've mentioned already. We've got Imperial, City and Docklands, Downing, Imperial, and Ad Properties. No, that's it. No credit to City and Docklands, who've got a piece of artwork on every single floor of a 55, 56 story building.
Right.
And commissioned Blast Studios for their lobby, and used Tomato architecture to design the offices. They've used POW OPC have used POW for their furniture. So, there are some really great stories there of collaboration, but you've got to start that conversation. And that's happened in North Acton.
This is just a typical floor, and I want to just show you the art. So for example, we have on every single floor a piece of art like that. And then you see we got that. So you go on that QR code and we'll pick up a Winter of Luxury, Art Without Limits, and then you can go and see this little blurb about it. If you go to a hotel in Italy, okay, on a comparable price, the structure of the buildings is normally just very basic. It's not really basic. But the people and the staff and the food and everything is so nice. You walk out of there thinking, wow. So you kind of realize that a building is just it's like a body with no blood.
Right.
With no soul.
Yeah.
It's the people that make it. So what we try and do is make the experience the community.
Right.
Can I show you something, Matt?
You can.
Today we celebrate the efforts by everyone, and we've got a fantastic lineup of speakers who's going to share more about what's been achieved and what lies ahead.
This will be the start of an entirely new town for Ealing, one in which is going to host so many more thousands of residents, so many more thousands of businesses, and they will say that it started here in Northampton.
It's unbelievable. I've been walking through here for the last couple of years, buying my coffee on the way through, and I did wonder what we were going to do with this, but the Park Royal magic dust has been sprinkled on here. It's stunning to see it come to life.
of Parliament for Ealing Central and Acton, which now includes what is going to be the Old Oak Station. So I'm really excited that we're here on the edge of the OPDC, and the whole thing is about partnership. I mean, I'm a sort of lifelong Ealinger, Elonian, I think is the technical term. And I remember when this was the BBC Wigan Prop Department was over there, it definitely has come a long way since those days.